allowing the energy to pass through without lodging in your nervous system. Emotional immunity is built not by avoiding conflict, but by refusing to ingest the toxic labels. 15. The authentic response, a consolidated framework. Knowing is not enough, you must embody the knowledge in the moment of attack. The authentic response is a four-step process for neutralizing projected hostility without compromising your integrity. Step 1. Internal separation, the pause. Action: immediately pause and take a physical breath. Mantra: this is not mine. Outcome: you shift from being the target to being the observer. You identify the emotional intensity as disproportionate, signaling a projection. Step 2. External validation, the acknowledgement. Action: briefly and calmly validate their feeling without validating their narrative. Phrase example: I hear that you are very upset about specific situation, or it sounds like you feel deeply disrespected. Outcome: you strip the attack of its fuel. You acknowledge the person's right to their feeling, their reality, but you refuse to accept the truth of their accusation, their projection. This is the key to compassionate detachment. Step 3. State your reality, the boundary. Action: state your truth or boundary firmly and concisely, using I statements, and detach from the outcome. Phrase example: I understand your frustration, but my decision to action was necessary for my own health, or I cannot continue this conversation when the tone is accusatory. Outcome: you anchor yourself in your own reality. You define your value not through their eyes, but through your own inner compass. Step 4. Release and surrender, the freedom. Action: physically move away from the conflict, both literally and mentally. Release the need for them to understand or apologize. Mantra: I release the need for closure. My peace is not dependent on their perception. Outcome: you reclaim your energetic sovereignty. You accept the messy non-closure as the inevitable consequence of standing in your truth, allowing their shadow to remain their responsibility. The undefeated spirit. Ultimately, the hostility you encounter is the price of visibility and integrity. When you are authentic, you are not engaging in a popularity contest, you are engaged in a sacred contract with yourself. The projections of others, the accusations of selfishness, arrogance, or incompetence, are merely psychological weather. They may cloud your day, but they cannot change your inner climate. The undefeated spirit is not the one who is never criticized, but the one who can distinguish the truth of their being from the phantom of the projected shadow, and who chooses, every time, to stand in their own light. There comes a definitive moment in life when the nature of hostility shifts. You realize that the anger, resentment, or sudden coldness directed toward you has very little to do with your actions, and everything to do with the vast, unseen depths within others. You may wonder why a trusted friend grows suddenly distant, why a colleague launches into subtle sabotage, or why someone who once praised you now appears to resent your very presence. At the surface, it's natural to self-incriminate, to believe you made a mistake or misstepped somewhere along the way. But often, the truth is far more complex, far more hidden, rooted in the deepest trenches of the human psyche. It is not your deeds they are reacting to, it is the unclaimed parts of themselves that you, by simply existing, have brought into uncomfortable focus. 1. The shadows. Every person carries within them a shadow, the psychological term for the repository of rejected traits, disowned desires, buried shame, and unacknowledged fears. These are the aspects of the self that people cannot bear to face. Instead of integrating them into a whole personality, they push them down into the unconscious. The shadow never vanishes. It lingers, heavy and silent, waiting for the right external trigger to call it forth. More often than not, that trigger is another person. You become the mirror. You become the embodiment of what someone has denied within themselves. This is the mechanism of psychological projection. Your confidence highlights the deep-seated insecurity they cannot admit. Your discipline exposes the latent excuses. Your joy or freedom reveals the chains they locked themselves into. Your authenticity depend on for approval and survival. They do not truly see you. They see their own shadow reflected in you, and they despise that reflection. Hatred, envy, and resentment are, therefore, often nothing more than projections of their unclaimed, unhealed, and feared parts. They wage war not because of your actions, but because your existence unsettles their illusion of self. You become the mirror that shows them who they are, and that reflection is unbearable. Instead of facing their own darkness, they attempt to destroy the mirror. They speak against you, distance themselves, or undermine you, that by removing you, they can remove the shadow. 2. The threat of authenticity and light. Beyond the shadow, your willingness to live an authentic, constant need for masks, is Oak's resistance. Those falsehood. Many these that are palatable to others, roles that win approval and shield them from rejection. The presence of someone who lives truthfully destabilizes this fragile armor. It acts as a silent confrontation that registers deep in their unconscious. Your refusal to conform highlights their own compliance and self-betrayal. Your courage to speak a difficult truth calls out their fear and silence they have made and the self they abandon to meet expectations. Because your authenticity is perceived as a danger to their carefully constructed reality, their defense mechanism often manifests as rejection, criticism, or outright contempt. They are not repelled by your flaws, they are often repelled by your essence, because it demands they question their own inauthenticity. It is easier to scorn the one who stands in truth than to face the prison of one's own falsehood.